Welcome back to Echoes of Ihsan, everyone. I'm so excited for our deep dive today
Me too.
into Sunan al Tirmidhi,
Volume 3.
Volume 3. It's a fascinating text, and I think we're going to extract some really fascinating insights from it.
Yeah, it's more than just a book. It's a window into the social, economic, and legal norms of early Islamic society.
I love that. Okay, so for those who might not be familiar, can you give us a little background on what Sunan al Tirmidhi actually is?
Absolutely. So Sunan al Tirmidhi is one of the 6 major Hadith collections in Sunni Islam.
Hmm.
Hadith, as you might know, are the recorded sayings and actions of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and they provide guidance and context for understanding the Quran and applying Islamic principles to daily life.
Almost like a companion guide to the Quran,
That's a great way to put it.
like a detailed instruction manual.
Yes, exactly. And what makes Sunan al Tirmidhi particularly valuable is how it's organized.
Okay.
Imam al Tirmidhi, a renowned scholar of his time, meticulously compiled and categorized these hadith into chapters covering a wide range of topics.
Wow.
It's like he anticipated the questions people would have and laid out the answers in a clear, thematic way.
And this volume 3, what kind of territory are we covering here?
Volume 3 dives into some really practical areas, things that people grapple with every day. You'll find chapters on business transactions, legal judgments, the laws of inheritance, punishments for various crimes, hunting vows and oaths, military expeditions, you name it.
Whoa, that's quite a range.
It is.
It sounds like we're really going to get a glimpse into the nitty-gritty of everyday life in early Islamic society.
Precisely. And what's fascinating is that it reveals a sophisticated legal and ethical framework,
Mm-hmm.
a system designed to create a just and compassionate society.
Okay, I am intrigued. Let's start unpacking some of these themes. You mentioned business transactions.
Yes.
What kind of insights does the book offer in that area?
Well, one of the things that struck me was the emphasis on fairness and transparency in all dealings.
Okay.
For instance, there's a hadith that explicitly prohibits a specific type of trade practice called nash. Imagine someone inflating the price of an item artificially by making fake bids, driving up the cost for genuine buyers.
That sounds like a classic pump and dump scheme.
Exactly, and it was condemned even back then.
Wow.
The hadith emphasizes that honesty and integrity are paramount in business.
Mm-hmm.
It even goes into details about things like disclosing any defects in a product you're selling, being upfront about the weight and quality of goods, ensuring that both parties are entering a transaction with full knowledge and consent.
So it's not just about following the letter of the law, but upholding a higher ethical standard.
Precisely. And this commitment to ethical conduct extends to all sorts of business interactions. There's a hadith that prohibits hoarding goods to manipulate prices. Imagine a merchant stockpiling essential commodities, creating artificial scarcity to jack up the cost.
That's a timeless problem, especially in times of crisis.
Exactly. And the hadith addresses it head on, emphasizing the importance of market fairness and ensuring that people have access to essential goods at reasonable prices.
It sounds like these teachings are incredibly relevant even in today's world.
Absolutely. They offer timeless principles that can guide us in navigating the complexities of the marketplace,
Mm-hmm.
whether we're talking about ancient bazaars or modern e-commerce.
That's amazing. So what else does this volume tell us about business practices in early Islamic society?
There are specific rules outlined regarding different forms of trade and transactions. For example, the book delves into the concept of salam, a type of forward contract, where you pay for goods in advance to be delivered later.
That's an interesting concept. What's the rationale behind regulating such contracts?
It's all about mitigating risk and ensuring fairness for both parties. Imagine a farmer needs capital up front to buy seeds and equipment.
Right.
He could enter a salam contract with a buyer receiving payment today for crops that will be harvested months later.
That makes sense. It allows the farmer to secure funding and the buyer to lock in a price.
Exactly, a win-win situation. But there are safeguards in place to protect both parties. The hadith emphasizes the importance of clearly defining the quality and quantity of the goods, the delivery date, and other crucial details to prevent any disputes down the line.
So it's about creating a framework that fosters trust and clarity, minimizing the potential for misunderstandings or exploitation.
Precisely, and this attention to detail is evident in other aspects of business transactions as well. For instance, there's a fascinating section on the rules surrounding buying and selling animals.
Animals, like livestock.
Exactly, and it gets surprisingly specific. There's a hadith that prohibits selling an animal that is known to be pregnant without disclosing that fact to the buyer.
Why is that? Is it because the value of the animal changes once it gives birth?
That's part of it, but it also speaks to a broader principle of transparency and avoiding deceptive practices.
Hmm.
The seller is obligated to provide all relevant information so the buyer can make an informed decision. It's about ensuring that no one is taking advantage of another person's lack of knowledge.
That's incredible. It shows a real concern for ethical conduct, even in seemingly mundane transactions.
And it goes beyond just buying and selling. There are hadith that address issues like renting and leasing, borrowing and lending, even the rules surrounding lost and found items.
Wait, lost and found items. What does that have to do with business?
It might seem like a stretch, but it reflects the same principles of honesty and responsibility. There's a hadith that advises you to pick up a lost item, even if it's something small, and make an effort to find its owner.
So it's about going beyond just your own self-interest and considering the well-being of others.
Exactly. And if you can't find the owner, the hadith advises you to keep the item safe and use it in a way that benefits others. It's about recognizing that even lost property has value and should be treated with respect.
This is fascinating. I'm starting to see how these seemingly disparate topics are actually interconnected by a common thread of ethical principles.
It's like a tapestry with each thread representing a different aspect of life, but woven together by the underlying values of justice, compassion, and integrity.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground on business practices, but you also mentioned that this volume delves into legal matters. What kind of insights does it offer in that area?
It provides a fascinating look at the judicial system in early Islamic society. There's a section that focuses on the qualities of a good judge, emphasizing the importance of impartiality, wisdom, and a deep understanding of Islamic law.
So it's not just about being a legal expert, but also possessing strong moral character.
Exactly. And the hadith highlights the weighty responsibility that comes with the position.
Right.
There's even a hadith that says it would be better for a judge to turn away from the position entirely than to judge unjustly.
That's a powerful statement. It shows the seriousness with which they viewed the administration of justice.
Absolutely. And it goes into detail about the procedures involved in legal proceedings, ensuring a fair and transparent process, for example. There's a hadith that emphasizes the importance of listening to both sides of a dispute before making a judgment.
That seems like a basic principle of fairness, but it's amazing to see it explicitly codified in these early teachings.
And it goes beyond just listening. The hadith encourages judges to actively seek evidence and investigate the matter thoroughly, ensuring that their rulings are based on facts and not just hearsay.
So it's about due diligence and striving for objectivity in every case.
Precisely. And it emphasizes the importance of seeking divine guidance in making difficult decisions. There's a hadith that encourages judges to pray for guidance and seek wisdom from Allah before delivering a verdict.
It's a reminder that justice ultimately comes from God,
Yes.
and those who administer it should approach their task with humility and a deep sense of responsibility.
Exactly. And this commitment to fairness and justice extends to all aspects of the legal system, from the selection of witnesses to the administration of punishments.
Punishments. I'm curious about that. What does the book say about how crimes were dealt with in early Islamic society?
It delves into the concept of hudud,
Mhm.
which refers to specific punishments prescribed for certain major offenses such as theft, adultery, and murder.
So a codified system of penalties for serious crimes.
Exactly, but it's important to understand the context.
Mhm.
These punishments were not meant to be arbitrary or vengeful, but rather to serve multiple purposes: to deter crime, to uphold justice, and to provide a means of atonement for the offender.
Atonement. How does punishment provide atonement?
The idea is that by undergoing the prescribed punishment in this world, the individual is cleansed of the sin and spared from further punishment in the hereafter.
Okay.
It's a concept that emphasizes both accountability and mercy.
That's a really nuanced perspective. It adds another dimension to the whole idea of justice. But weren't these punishments considered quite harsh in some cases?
Yes, some of the punishments, like amputation for theft, might seem severe by today's standards, but it's crucial to remember the historical context. These punishments were established in a society where there were no prisons or sophisticated law enforcement systems.
Right.
The threat of such punishments served as a powerful deterrent against crime and helped to maintain social order.
So it was about maintaining a balance between individual rights and the collective good of society.
Precisely. And even within this system, there were safeguards in place to ensure fairness. For example, the Hadith emphasizes that the burden of proof lies on the accuser, and there must be multiple witnesses or a confession from the accused for the punishment to be carried out.
That's a surprisingly high bar for conviction, especially considering the time period.
It is.
It shows a real concern for protecting the innocent from false accusations.
Absolutely. And it highlights how Islamic jurisprudence strives to balance justice with compassion, recognizing the human fallibility of both individuals and systems.
This is all incredibly insightful. It's like we're getting a first-hand glimpse into the legal and ethical framework of early Islamic society.
It is, and it's through these detailed accounts, these glimpses into everyday life, that we gain a deeper appreciation for the richness and depth of Islamic teachings.
This has been an incredible deep dive so far, and I'm already feeling my understanding expand.
I'm glad to hear it. And believe me, we've only just scratched the surface of what this volume has to offer. There's so much more to explore.
I can't wait to see what other fascinating nuggets we unearth.
Yes. It's amazing how these teachings address even the most seemingly mundane aspects of life.
All right.
Take, for example, the subject of hunting.
Oh, right. You mentioned that earlier.
Yes.
What kind of guidance does the book offer on that?
Well, first and foremost, it establishes that hunting is permissible in Islam, but like everything else, it's not a free-for-all.
Right.
There are specific guidelines and ethical considerations woven into the very act of hunting.
So it's not just about going out and bagging as much game as you can.
Not at all. The Hadith emphasizes the importance of recognizing the sanctity of life even when taking it for sustenance. There's a Hadith that specifically instructs hunters to say, Bismillah,
Bismillah.
in the name of God before releasing an arrow or sending out a hunting dog.
That's a beautiful concept. It's like a moment of acknowledging the sacredness of the act and the life you're about to take.
Exactly. It's a reminder that hunting is not just a sport or a recreational activity. It's a serious undertaking that should be approached with reverence and respect for the animal.
So what other guidelines are there?
Well, there are hadith that prohibit certain practices like hunting from your sport or using a living creature as target practice. The emphasis is on hunting for legitimate needs like obtaining food or protecting oneself or one's property.
That makes sense. It's about drawing a line between necessity and cruelty.
Precisely. And even within the context of hunting for sustenance, there are rules aimed at minimizing suffering and ensuring a swift and humane death for the animal.
What kind of rules are we talking about?
For instance, there's a hadith that discusses the proper way to slaughter an animal even if a knife isn't readily available.
Yeah.
It mentions that as long as the method used causes blood to flow and the name of God is invoked, the meat is considered permissible to eat.
So it's about ensuring that the animal doesn't suffer unnecessarily.
Exactly, and there are specific methods that are explicitly forbidden, like using a tooth or a nail to kill the animal.
A tooth or a nail. That seems oddly specific. What's the reasoning behind that?
The hadith explains that a tooth is considered bone, and using it to kill an animal is likened to striking it with a blunt object, which would cause unnecessary pain and suffering. Similarly, using a nail was seen as mimicking the methods used by certain groups at that time, which were considered inhumane.
So it's about upholding a certain standard of ethical conduct, even in the midst of something as primal as hunting.
Precisely, and this attention to detail extends to other aspects of hunting as well. There's a hadith that prohibits killing an animal that is nursing its young.
That's interesting. What's the reasoning behind that?
It's about recognizing the interconnectedness of life and the importance of preserving the natural order by sparing the mother. You're ensuring the survival of the offspring, allowing the species to continue to thrive.
Like an early form of conservation, recognizing the delicate balance of nature.
Exactly, and it goes even deeper than that. There's a hadith that prohibits destroying bird nests or harming the young ones.
Wow, that's surprising. It shows a level of compassion for even the smallest creatures.
It does, and it reflects a broader worldview that sees humanity as stewards of the earth entrusted with the responsibility of caring for all living beings.
So these teachings about hunting aren't just about practical guidelines, but also about fostering a sense of reverence for life and our place within the natural world.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that our actions have consequences not just for ourselves, but for the entire ecosystem.
This is incredible. I'm seeing how these seemingly mundane topics are actually gateways to deeper ethical and spiritual reflections. What other areas does this volume explore?
Well, there's a section on vows and oaths, which delves into the importance of fulfilling promises made in the name of God and the consequences of breaking them.
Vows and oaths. That's a topic that resonates across cultures and religions. It's about the weight of our words and the importance of keeping our commitments.
Exactly, and the hadith in this volume really emphasize the seriousness of these pronouncements. There's a story about a man who swore an oath that his wife would never give birth again.
Okay.
And then miraculously she conceived. The Prophet, peace be upon him, advised him that if he had added, inshallah, if God wills to his oath, that he wouldn't have been bound by it.
That's fascinating. So it's not just about the words themselves, but also about acknowledging the ultimate power of God and the limits of our own will.
Precisely. And there are hadith that discuss the proper way to make exceptions in oaths and the atonements for breaking them, recognizing that life is complex and circumstances can change.
So it's about navigating those complexities with integrity and seeking guidance when faced with difficult situations.
Exactly. And this emphasis on fulfilling commitments extends beyond just personal oaths. There are hadith that discuss the importance of honoring treaties and agreements made between individuals or even nations. It's about establishing a foundation of trust and accountability in all our interactions.
That's so relevant in today's world,
Mhm.
where agreements and contracts are the bedrock of so many relationships, both personal and professional.
Absolutely. These teachings remind us that our word is our bond, and upholding our commitments is essential for building a just and harmonious society.
Okay, we've covered business law, hunting vows, and oaths. It's amazing how much ground this one volume covers. What else does it delve into?
Well, there's a section that focuses on military expeditions and the rules of warfare. It might seem like a departure from the previous topics, but you'll find that the same underlying principles of justice and compassion are applied even in the context of conflict.
That's interesting. What kind of insights does it offer?
No, it provides a glimpse into how the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, led his companions in battles not out of aggression or conquest, but in defense of their faith and community. The Hadith highlight his strategic brilliance, his courage, and his unwavering commitment to ethical conduct, even amidst the chaos of war.
Ethical conduct in war.
Yeah.
That seems like a contradiction.
It might seem that way, but the Hadith clearly outline rules that were designed to minimize harm and uphold a certain standard of morality, even in the midst of conflict.
What kind of rules are we talking about?
For instance, there are explicit prohibitions against killing women, children, the elderly, and non-combatants. It also forbids the destruction of crops, trees, and places of worship.
So it's about drawing clear boundaries, even in the fog of war, and recognizing the sanctity of life and property.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just protecting the innocent. There are hadith that emphasize the importance of treating prisoners of war humanely, providing them with food, water, and shelter, and forbidding any form of torture or mistreatment.
That's a remarkably progressive stance, especially considering the norms of warfare at that time.
It is, and it reflects a broader Islamic worldview that values compassion and mercy even toward those who are considered enemies.
So it's about upholding a higher moral standard, even in the most challenging of circumstances.
Precisely, and this commitment to ethical conduct extends to other aspects of warfare as well. There are hadith that discuss the proper distribution of spoils of war, emphasizing fairness and equity, and prohibiting the hoarding of wealth by those in positions of power.
It's about ensuring that even victory is achieved with integrity and a sense of social responsibility.
Exactly, and it goes beyond just the material aspects of warfare. There are hadith that address the etiquette of interacting with people of other faiths, even during times of conflict.
Etiquette during war. That's an interesting concept. What kind of etiquette are we talking about?
Well, for instance, there's a hadith that advises against initiating greetings with Jews and Christians during a time of war.
Okay.
But it also emphasizes that if they offer a greeting, it should be returned with a similar phrase, albeit one that acknowledges the supremacy of God.
So it's about maintaining a sense of decorum and respect, even amidst adversarial relationships.
Exactly. It's a reminder that Islamic principles are intended to guide our conduct in all circumstances, even the most challenging ones.
This is so insightful. It's like we're piecing together a mosaic of early Islamic society, its values, its challenges, its complexities. It's fascinating to see how these teachings sought to address such a wide range of human experiences, from the marketplace to the battlefield.
It is, and it's through these detailed accounts, these glimpses into everyday life, that we gain a deeper appreciation for the richness and depth of Islamic teachings.
This deep dive has been incredibly enriching, and I'm already feeling the impact of these insights.
I'm glad to hear it, and believe me, we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore in this volume.
It's fascinating how these teachings seem to touch upon every aspect of life, even things you might not expect. I was surprised to learn that this volume even delves into the topic of clothing.
It's true, you might not think of clothing as a particularly religious matter, but in Islam, even the way we dress is seen as an expression of our faith and values.
So what kind of guidance does the book offer on clothing? Does it lay out a strict dress code?
It's not about dictating a specific style or fashion, but rather about establishing principles of modesty, decency, and avoiding extravagance.
Okay.
The Hadith emphasize that our outward appearance should reflect our inward state, that true adornment comes from piety and good character, not from material possessions.
That makes sense. Modesty is a common theme in many religions. It's about recognizing the inherent dignity of the human body and not using it for ostentatious display or to attract undue attention.
Exactly. And the Hadith in this volume provides specific guidelines for both men and women for men. There are Hadith that explicitly prohibit the wearing of silk or garments dyed with usfur, a saffron-like dye that was considered luxurious at the time.
So it's about avoiding ostentatious displays of wealth and status.
Precisely, the Hadith emphasize that true beauty lies in simplicity and humility, not in flaunting one's material possessions. There's a Hadith that says the best garment is a white one, symbolizing purity and cleanliness.
That's a powerful message, especially in today's world where there's so much emphasis on outward appearances and material possessions.
It is, and it's a reminder that our worth is not determined by what we wear, but by the content of our character and the good deeds we perform.
So what about guidelines for women's clothing?
The Hadith emphasize the importance of women covering their hair and bodies, but they also mention that it's permissible for them to wear beautiful clothes and adorn themselves for their husbands.
So it's about finding that balance between modesty and the natural desire for beauty and adornment.
Exactly. It's about expressing our individuality while adhering to principles of decency and respect. And it's important to note that the concept of covering can vary across cultures and time periods. The essential principle is to dress in a way that is dignified, avoids unnecessary exposure, and doesn't attract unwanted attention.
That makes sense. It's about understanding the spirit of the teachings and applying them in a way that is relevant to our own contexts.
Precisely, and this emphasis on modesty in dress extends beyond just avoiding revealing clothing. There are hadith that discourage both men and women from dragging their garments on the ground out of arrogance.
Interesting. So even the way you wear your clothes can reflect your inner state.
Exactly. It's about being mindful of our actions and intentions, even in seemingly trivial matters. It's a reminder that our faith should permeate every aspect of our lives, even the way we dress.
This is fascinating. I'm seeing how these teachings weave together the practical and the spiritual, the outward and the inward.
It is, and it reminds us that Islam is not just a set of rituals or beliefs, but a holistic way of life that provides guidance for every situation.
Speaking of guidance for every situation, I'm curious about what this volume says about dealing with challenging circumstances. Does it offer any advice on coping with hardship or adversity?
It certainly does. There's a section that delves into the concept of sabr, which translates to patience or steadfastness. It's about enduring trials and tribulations with grace and resilience, recognizing that hardship is an inevitable part of the human experience.
That's a valuable lesson, especially in today's world where we're constantly bombarded with challenges and setbacks.
Exactly. And the Hadith emphasized that patience is not about passive resignation, but rather an active form of resistance against despair and negativity. It's about maintaining hope and trust in God, even when faced with seemingly insurmountable obstacles.
So it's about drawing strength from our faith and finding meaning in our struggles.
Precisely, the Hadith teach us that hardship can be a source of purification and spiritual growth. It can refine our character, deepen our empathy, and draw us closer to God.
That's a powerful perspective shift. It's about reframing adversity as an opportunity for growth rather than simply something to endure.
Exactly. And it's not just about enduring hardship in silence. The Hadith encourage us to seek support from our community, to lean on each other in times of need, and to offer comfort and encouragement to those who are struggling.
It's about recognizing that we're not alone in our struggles and that our faith provides a framework for supporting each other through difficult times.
Absolutely, and it goes beyond just emotional support. There are hadith that emphasize the importance of helping those in need, both financially and through acts of service. It's about recognizing that we are all interconnected and that our individual well-being is tied to the well-being of the community as a whole.
This is incredible. It's like we're uncovering layer upon layer of wisdom, each one revealing new insights into how to live a more meaningful and fulfilling life.
It is, and it's a reminder that these teachings are not just historical artifacts, but living, breathing guidelines that can inform and inspire us in our own lives today.
This deep dive has been an amazing journey, and I feel like I've only just begun to scratch the surface of this vast ocean of knowledge. Is there anything else that stood out to you from this volume that you'd like to share?
You know, one thing that really struck me was the emphasis on intention throughout this volume. The Hadith repeatedly remind us that our actions are judged not only by their outward form, but also by the intention behind them.
That's a profound concept. It's about aligning our actions with our values and ensuring that our motivations are pure.
Exactly. It's about living with consciousness and purpose, recognizing that every choice we make, every action we take has spiritual significance.
It's a call to live with intention, to strive for excellence in all that we do, and to make our lives a reflection of our faith.
Absolutely. And it's a reminder that true success is not measured by worldly achievements, but by the state of our hearts and our relationship with God.
This has been an incredibly enriching experience, and I feel a renewed sense of inspiration to delve deeper into these teachings and apply them to my own life. Thank you so much for guiding us through this deep dive into Sunan al Tirmidhi Volume 3.
It was my pleasure.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on Echoes of Ihsan. We hope this exploration has left you with a deeper understanding of these profound teachings and a thirst to learn even more.
Until next time, may peace be upon you.
And upon you be peace.